Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody?
I think we're both afraid to say her name.
Yeah, no, Xanet Pailet. Yeah,
Xanet
There you
Pailet.
go. You got it right.
Yes.
That was
Xanet Pailet.
amazing.
Welcome.
How about that?
Listen, for anyone who saw this name in the show notes, it is a little intimidating because you're like, oh my God, what is going to happen here? Like, so like, I love, and just to let everybody know, I got both names wrong in the opposite direction. I went like, I was like Xanet Pailet, and you're like, no, that's definitely not it. Yeah. So I'm happy to admit I was embarrassed thoroughly on how
I was
badly
practicing
I did that.
internally the entire time after she said her name, just to not get it wrong.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
So we are always excited about our conversations, but I was telling you before, and just to loop in audience, like one thing that I think is great about this is that this topic is something that nobody wants to talk about. But if you're around a campfire with your friends having a beer, talking about it, like it's like a hushed tone kind of conversation. And I've always found that to be a little bit intriguing. Because we all have sex, we all have genitalia, we all have, urges and health issues around that. Like, why the fuck is this so weird to talk about? Like, I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me, right? So I'm excited to dig in and get all embarrassed for everybody listening.
Well, I'm glad that we're talking about it, and I think you're right. It for a lot of people, it's very uncomfortable to talk about sex. There's just a lot of it's this weird thing where we're this super sexualized society, but we still have all these puritanical views around sex, and I think religion has had a lot to do with that. So there's just a lot of underlying shame that people have around talking about sex, like. And it makes it very uncomfortable for people. It's like I talk about shame being like the nastiest word in the universe. It is, right? It's something that can be very, very challenging for people, and sexual shame is very, very prevalent. So it doesn't surprise me. That people have a hard time talking about it.
Yeah,
I wish they didn't.
Yeah. So let's start there. Like what are some of the reasons why when you're talking to people and stuff, like, is there like recurring themes about why this is so hard? Because I've got some, guesses, but yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna giggle like a high school kid.
Yeah.
This entire conversation.
And that happens too, right? Exactly. Are there themes why it's so hard? I think it's hard because we were socialized not to talk about it, right? Like we all have this, what I call a sexual blueprint. And in the sexual blueprint, which was modeled to us as children, like we noticed, did our parents talk about sex? Did our parents show what intimacy looked like? Was there a lot of touch? Was there a lot of holding? Like, how were you educated about sex? And so for many of us, it's just been very, very hush hush, right? And that gets imprinted inside of us, and it's just something that we're very, very uncomfortable about. But I do think it's very, cultural. It comes from culture. It comes from a lot of religion. Let's talk about
religion.
I was actually going to ask that.
We'll get into that in a second. I think.
What about other cultures? Because I really feel like. You hear things about Europe or something, right? And they have different sexual norms, different ideas,
right?
And I'm assuming that's global. But are we as Americans maybe more repressed than other cultures?
I think the Americans and the Brits, right? Because we come from this puritanical culture, which they brought over to us, right? We didn't get the Dutch culture. We could have, but we didn't, right? So yeah, I think we come from a very puritanical religious culture, right? That Christianity is really all about, purity. And I wasn't raised Christian; I was raised Jewish, but and sex was, forbidden. And unless you were married, and it was only done under certain circumstances, right? Same thing with Orthodox Judaism, by the way, right? And many other religions as well. I think, Islam is also very not sex positive. Like I have had a lot of Indian clients who have also had a lot of shame and challenges around sexuality, right? So I think it's kind of pervasive in certain parts of the world, culturally, that sexuality is something that you just don't talk about. It's private. It's between you and another person, and we don't get educated about it. And therefore, when we have problems, we don't even know what to do. We don't know what's normal, what's not normal.
It's funny, Brett Goldstein, the comedian writer for Ted Lasso, we saw him here in Baltimore, and he made a joke about the American bathrooms, that how they've got a gap below the walls. He's like, you know, in the UK, it goes all the way to the ground. He goes, I just want to take a shit like a civilized human being. And I'm like sitting there, he's like, he was so embarrassed by that. I'm like sitting there going, that's funny how culturally something like that, little tiny detail and how we change things. You're like, totally. What the hell do you mean I have to see somebody's ankles next to me while we're out? You know, like that's insanity. Like, what kind of barbarian are you? And it's just funny, to Tom's point. Like, I mean, you look at like, what was that other comedian said, like, what is this? And it was like a Muslim porno, like where they have just like, you see the slits. I was like, oh man, bad joke. But like that's playing on that cultural difference there. They were like,
right.
Yeah. Showing your ankles there is like, oh my God, holy crap. What are you doing?
Well, I'm wondering, and it's pretty funny. I know this, religion may not be your entire specialty around this. But let's see. I'm sure you probably know more than Matt and I. I'm enamored. We know somebody who made his living as a futurist, and I kept hounding him about this because he made a passing comment, basically about this kind of resurrection of female-based religions, right? I mean, that a lot of those things coming out of Africa, it was always a female deity. We see it in some of the more, let's call them traditional pre-Abrahamian religions. And I'm wondering if there was kind of a matriarchal figure, would sex be viewed completely different?
Yeah.
Would it not be as taboo?
I think you're totally right. Like, when I think about some of my, leanings towards Tantra and sacred sexuality and Taoism, right? That was all about the worship of the goddess. That was totally what it was about. And those were very, they saw sex as sexuality as a blessing, right? As a way to actually access, bliss. So I think that's definitely true. The patriarchy versus the matriarchy, which is female-centric religions, right, are much more sexually positive. They see the woman as the bearer, like as the creatress. Right? Which she is, because she is the one who brings life into this world, literally, right? And so I do think that that is very true. That is not how we are in the United States, clearly, right? But in some of the ancient religions, there was much more of a much more sexually open, perspective, for sure. And you see that in art too, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What was that old phrase? You could tell the health of a society through their artists and musicians. Right? It's like,
right.
Like you can kind of, that's definitely like a thing. So like, if you looked at it like I don't know, not to clinicalize this, but like a candlestick graph of which direction we're going as a group, like, do you see that we're more opening up to this sort of line of thinking, or are you kind of just steady Eddie over there?
I mean, I think there's a divergence, right? Like, statistically, the data that we're seeing is that people are having less sex in general. Like, we just see that, right? There's been a steep decline.
Seriously?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it stress related, do you think? Is it
stress related? Is it the fact that people are more connected to their devices than they are to their partners? Right? Like, I'm not sure, but we're definitely seeing like a trend of people having less sex, especially in the younger generation. That's happening.
They're not drinking. They're not doing drugs.
I know, they're not drinking. They're not having sex. What the hell are they doing?
What the hell? Somebody put on a Led Zeppelin album and fix this.
Right? So there is a trend of that for sure, going down. On the other hand, I think the other thing that, at least that I'm seeing, and I think other sex coaches and sex therapists in the world are saying, is that the younger generation is also in some ways they have they're much more open, right? For especially like with respect to gender, they're a lot more gender flexible. There's a lot more experimenting with same-sex, relationships. And I think some of the stereotypical gender roles from a sexual perspective are shifting. So in some ways, I feel like there's more openness, but in general, the trend is people having less sex. For sure.
You know when my kids really like to enforce gender stereotypes? When it comes down to who's mowing the lawn and who's doing the dishes. Like, all of a sudden, my kids are like Ward Cleaver. They're like, "Oh no, that's a boy's job." You're like, But so let me ask this, and that's first of all, I'm like kind of processing that because that sounds.
That people are having less sex.
Yeah, like that feels.
But
crazy to me,
it happened. There were reports even in Japan years ago, which is why I asked about stress, right? Because their population is declining. They're actively trying to get people to have sex.
Yes. Right.
So and you would think because the culture has the weirdest fucking fetishes.
Yeah. Yeah, we had Todd Max Carey. I don't know what he goes by, but he wrote a documentary on kink, and it was really interesting because when he goes to like Germany and Japan, and like some of these places, like the kink culture is like pinned out, like way different than us. And I think there's like this really interesting corollary between how much somebody leans into their kinky proclivities and how happy they are as a person. Like it's like a weird. Like, I'm like, oh, I guess that makes sense. If you got this itch and you can scratch it unabashedly, like that makes.
Well, we also started with the whole shame thing. And if you can openly express what you're into, you're probably carrying less shame around it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely true. Like we all have these, what we call core desires. These are like the emotions that we want to feel around sexuality, around our sex life. And, like people who can really express that what they want. And they're really like, I can see this when I do exercises with couples. Some couples are like, some people are like, oh yeah, like I want to feel this and I want to feel that. And other ones are like, I'm really having a hard time figuring out what I want to feel. Right. So when you have a sense of like what your desires really are, and then you can fully and freely express them, of course you're happier and your sex is better, because when those emotional needs are actually being met, right, then you're actually, soothing childhood wounds, because it all goes back down to childhood wounds. And, you're able to like, really your nervous system gets to reset. And that's very powerful, right? Like, oh yeah, if I want to be dominated every time I have sex and I'm dominated all the time, that's super juicy for me. I can never get enough of that, right? Because that's just like a core desire that I want, that makes me feel good because I'm so in control all the time. The idea of like just being able to surrender and let somebody else take care of all this shit. That's fantastic. Right. That's
interesting. Well, so that actually dovetails into what I was going to ask, because I told you I'm still kind of processing this like atom bomb, but no, look, it's great. And this is why we have the show, right? Like get to learn all kinds of crazy stuff. But here's my question. If I didn't have sex for a month, let's say, I'd be a complete fucking asshole. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'd be an absolute lunatic. And I've gotten into fights with my wife if we go into like a spell where we're less active. I mean, you get into that like third week and you're like, I'm going to kill somebody. Like, and listen, that sounds dramatic, but it kind of gets dramatic in my head.
Well,
anyway,
but even
right?
that, doesn't it become more mechanical than the actual, like, it's more of like,
Yeah, but if you're having less sex just generally, right? Yeah. Now I'm an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever age group you have in your mind, Xanet, but like that group, if I'm having less sex, like, is it just like my entire emotional attachment to the act of sex is not the same as what I'm describing? Or are these things percolating under the surface? Like, is that frustration and that disconnect?
It's hard to know because, that generation also like has so much access to porn. Right. And so they may be having less sex with another person, but they're probably having a hell of a lot of sex with themselves.
I see.
Right.
Right.
So, when we say people are having less sex, we're not looking at masturbation rates. We're looking at like, are they actually having intercourse?
Are you actually having
sex? Right, exactly. So, you know, and I understand, like, for a lot of people, sex is a huge release, right? And you need to have that sexual release, but also it's a way to feel more connected with your partner, right? And I think one of the challenges that couples have that I talk about, like my new book is called The Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit. Right?
I love the name, by the way.
There's so many people not having sex or in sexless marriages. That trend is going up. You know, it's really for a lot of, especially women, like they need that emotional connection before they really want to enjoy having sex. And for a lot of men, they need the sexual connection in order to feel that emotional connection.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like a perfect scenario
perfect
for
It is right, and that's
so
why,
the sex,
like,
the less sex is not just in the domain of the younger folks. It's actually in long married
across
folks.
the board.
The rate of sexless marriages is high. Like, so everything is happening.
I would think that's such a huge reason that people would get divorced.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, you know, but like, oh God, man, it's such a weird. Yeah, I don't even know how to ask this, but like, if it's, why don't they just get divorced and have more sex? I guess, is that it? And I get, like, hey, you got a family with somebody, you got all those financial and you have a history with somebody, but it almost seems like it's not healthier for either person in the long run.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think the first line of attack here is to understand why people are having less sex. Let's talk about like married couples and long-term relationships, like you, Matt, in your relationship. Why people are having less sex or why they struggle with that in long-term relationships. And usually, right, not having sex is a symptom. It's a symptom of other stuff that's going on in the relationship itself, right? So I'm not feeling connected. I'm not feeling emotionally safe with my partner. I feel like I can't express my desires, my wants, and my needs. I feel like, you know, if if I say something, it's going to be used against me, going to be weaponized. Sex is often weaponized, right? Or I'm going to be manipulated. So for me, the focus always when somebody shows up and they're like, we haven't had sex in 4 years, which for me happens all the time when I work with couples. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about what's actually going on underneath in the relationship, because we still love each other. You know, we're supposed to.
I don't want to throw in the towel.
Each other.
Yeah.
Right. And so really examining what's going on and helping them create more of an understanding and compassion and feeling safer with each other emotionally will often just open up the spigot to the physical connection as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'd be curious your reflection on this. Like, how easy is it? Because I think a lot of times when I'm when in my own relationship, if we're experiencing like a down cycle, it's usually not because of some systemic issue. It's usually because there was like 9 soccer practices.
You know what I mean? Like other things that have to get done.
Right.
Yeah. And the first time yesterday was a great example. I didn't see my wife like one-on-one until like 10:45 at night. Like, obviously that's not like a, hey, let's line up a sex kind of situation. That's like a, hey man, how was your day? Let's check in and let's go the fuck to sleep. Like, it was basically like,
totally.
And I feel like that's kind of normal, but I mean, it does also feel like it's a black ice situation, if you will, towards like, okay, it's been 6 months of 9 soccer practices a week. We have not made any effort to do it, you know, and is that sort of like an easy place to find yourself in, I guess?
I think it is pretty easy, especially with kids, right?
Yeah,
like kids make a sex life really, really challenging. And, you know, I don't have great answers. Like when people come in and they're like, you know, well, we have these 3-year-olds. I'm like, you got 3-year-olds. Like, you can't lock them in the room yet. You can't lock your door, right? So the best you can do is like hope there are in-laws who can take them for the night and you get to go to a hotel. Or you get to stay at home, right? And it does make that challenging. And then you're relying more maybe on quickies if you can, but you know how unpredictable children are, right? Like, so I do think like very often it is a little bit of, I think black ice is a good analogy. It's a little bit of like you're sliding into something that you're not even aware that's happening. But I still feel like underneath that, if you haven't had sex in 6 months, something's going.
Something else,
right.
Something else is there.
We haven't had sex in a month. I'm like, okay, yeah, like you've had a busy month. Somebody's been sick. The kids have been throwing up. Whatever, right? Like,
right, yeah. But life, 6, we're starting to get into
all the fun,
right?
Yeah, all the fun stuff.
There's a clinical situation happening at 6 months. Right?
Right. At 6 months, it's like, curious about that. Let's dig a little bit deeper and seeing like how are you guys feeling about each other? Right. Tell me more. How are
here's
you
a
feeling
seat on
about
my
each
couch.
other?
Lay down.
Xanet, we've kind of jumped over the part where we ask you basically how'd you go from like because you were a lawyer first to a sex coach therapist.
Well, I mean, I was in a sexless marriage for 26 years, so I know what I'm talking about when I know what it's like being in a sexless marriage.
That is a long time.
Long time to be in a sexless marriage.
I'm sure he loves you talking about it as a career now, sure, too.
Hopefully he doesn't watch this stuff anymore. So I understand all of it. And a lot of my sexless marriage was initially related to stuff around me, like, abuse that I experienced as a child, not sexual abuse, but shame trauma, which is a big thing.
So it doesn't have to be sexual in nature. Any kind of trauma, any type
of trauma can affect your sex life, but sex shame trauma, like being caught playing doctor as a 7-year-old, other things that happen in early childhood can really, especially if you're sensitive, can really affect your feeling safe in your body and feeling like, anxiety around, oh my God, I'm doing something bad. I'm going to be shamed. I'm going to be called out. My mother is going to walk on me. Right. And you have those experiences and it really just like shuts your body down, some other things. And so, there's a lot of way that trauma can show up for people. It can also be medical trauma, which I also experienced around sexuality. So your body just starts saying, no, this isn't safe. This isn't safe. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of pain. There's never been any, I've never had any orgasms. I've never had any pleasure. Like, I'm going to just stop doing this, which is really kind of what happened to us. But, as in any other relationship, when that intimacy stops, the emotional relationship started unraveling as well. And we didn't talk about it. I mean, we tried talking about it a couple of times after our second kid was born. But I mean, I was like 31 or 32 when we stopped having sex. And I didn't leave until I was 50, right? That says a lot about me. Right. And so, but when I left the marriage eventually at 50, I had to really like take a deep dive and look at like what the hell is going on for me. Because I know I'm a relationship person. I wanted to, remarry or be in another relationship, but I knew I hated having sex. So how the hell was I going to do that in the middle of New York City, right? That just wasn't going to happen. And so I did my own deep dive around my own trauma and my own work. And that led me to learn a lot about sexuality, which I got very interested in. And as I saw my body changing and as I started to open up and have like some really great sexual experiences for the first time in my life, I was like, oh my God, like,
what the hell was I doing before?
Exactly.
Why did I waste so much time?
This is what I'm really passionate about. This is really what I want to do. I want to help other women because there's so many other women who have had the same experience. I don't want them to be in a sexless marriage for 26 years, to waste 2 decades of their life, not having enjoyment, not having pleasure. And so that was really the shift for me. And then I just like took one training after another.
And then you went down.
So you got bit by the bug. This is an interesting thing. And Matt and I both have wives. We're all about your age. We're all around the same age.
Yeah.
Do you think part of this was the hormonal shift with like maybe perimenopause, or were you starting to feel something different? And the only reason I'm asking that is because we have a lot of women that come in the clinic that are about our age too, and some of them will have this kind of awakening around that time. Like something leveled out with their hormones once they got past the hot flashes and the body aches and all the horrible things that may be happening there, where they're like, and I've seen it a handful of times where they're like, look, I've been married to this dude for however long, I'm out. And it doesn't seem to be like, I'm not, you know, you can't blame either person in the relationship. Something was just wrong and it wasn't going to get corrected. But do you think there's a component of that? I mean, when you work with people, are these all age ranges, or are they people that tend to be closer to our age?
I think it varies. My clients probably average age are in their 40s, I would say, although I've certainly worked with, you know, people in their probably 30s, would be late 20s and 30s. So I think part of that is like, do we even have the time for this? But, you know, more and more, you know, I see more and more women who are having children really late in life, like in their 40s, right? And so then they're dealing with like perimenopause and being a new mom and their sex drive tanking, right?
That's a hell of a combination.
That is a perfect storm.
But in answer to your question around that, honestly, I think that, how do I say this? I think that there's like a natural, there's a natural change that just occurs. And I don't know that it's hormonal per se, as opposed to like, I've experienced this part of my life. It's been great. I've had children. I've had a marriage, you know. I think I just want to go do something different. Like I'm not that happy, right?
Like a next chapter kind of situation.
And I think that's true. Like I feel like, you know, the fairy tale that you get married and you stay with the same person till, you know, the day you die is just like, for some people it works, but for many it doesn't, because as human beings, we're just evolving. And especially when we grow at different levels, I think women, as they get older, they get more, you know, they finally, like me, right? Like I was a lawyer, I was a mother, I was a wife, I was a Broadway producer. Like I wore so many, so many hats, right? And then I was like, but I don't know who I am. Like, who is this person inside? What do I even want in life? And I think that once our children are, you know, out, and this is why that so many people in the empty nest syndrome at the empty nest stage end up divorcing. Like once the children are out, you turn to this person who you've been living with, and you say like, who the hell are you? Where'd you come from? Where'd you come from? And like, is this really what I want for the rest of my life? So I think women go more internal, and then they have like more freedom to be able to explore, who am I and what do I want? If this isn't that what I want, then I'm going to go start my second chapter. That's,
you know, it's funny. I just read an article a couple weeks ago about this new idea of a third age, right? Like this, I don't know if you've seen this, or it seems to be in my feeds now, but this idea is that like, instead of retirement being this sort of like starting point for a decline to death, it's like a starting point of whatever's next, to your point, right? Like I think you're using.
Well, I think that happens with longevity too, Matt.
Well, exactly.
You know, we're starting to live long until death do us part is fine when you're dropping dead at 50.
Right. Whole different story if you're leading to a buck like, 20. You're like, oh, fuck.
At 100, you're like, this is a long fucking time.
Well, you know, one of our earlier episodes, I don't know which one it was, but we did talk about this. We're like, what happens if you live to 100? You could literally have 3 full-length marriages inside of that time, like completely. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, and shorter. If you wanted the shorter, more adventurous path, you could have more than that. Like, but I mean, you know, you could have at least 3 like meaningful time frames with another human being, and that's, to Tom's point, that just wasn't a possibility before, right? Like, it just wasn't, right?
Well, so, you know, and think about the church influence on that too. Like, yo, you're not getting out of this alive. Is essentially Christianity's a death cult. I'll leave it at that.
Well, you said you grew up Jewish. I grew up Catholic, and I married a Jew. So like, we're all like, the guilt. We joke all the time that Jewish and Catholic the guilt is what ties us together. It's like, true. But like, you know, I went to Catholic school K through 12, and I remember on my 13th birthday getting my first like you know, and I was born in 76. So whatever, what is that? 80, 89, something like that. Like that was right when doctors were starting to like take a more active role, I think, because he goes, hey, do you know masturbation? Yeah. Are you good? Has anyone talked to you about masturbation? I feel like I had a visceral reaction. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well,
like,
it's better than your sixth grade health teacher, and they're like, "We're gonna watch a movie."
Yeah, yeah, right.
And everyone's like, "Oh no, we don't do that." And I'm like, every one of us.
Yeah, right.
Every fucking one of us.
But it's like it's this like weird juxtaposition, right? And the first time in my life I remember that happening was when this doctor, who's not part of the church, not part of my Catholic school, is like, hey, here's how you touch yourself. This is like, but you know, like blah, 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 and all this stuff. He's like, listen, it's not shameful. It's, you can do it. You know, like, and he didn't go into depth, but he kind of like peeled the first layer.
The level of depth there, Matt, might be the difference between education and abuse.
And pornography. Yeah, exactly. But like when I went back to school, if I would have talked about that experience at school, I probably would have gotten a detention. Like for sure, my parents would have been called. Like, you know, like your son is talking about masturbation. We cannot have this, you know?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I haven't heard that pediatricians do that, or maybe that wasn't.
Well, I mean, this was in the 80s, 90s, you know, whatever.
He grew up in California.
I grew up in California. It's all fucking thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you know. Yeah. That guy's retired and owns a cult in Lodi now. Yeah.
Probably right.
Yeah. Right. No, but I mean, like now, you know, my kids have TikTok and stuff, and like I, you know, for better or for worse, their sort of knowledge highway on these things is like the Autobahn compared to what we were on, right? Like, I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, and there's some parts about that are good, like, you know, hey, listen, you got the world is the world, and you know, it's kind of neat that you know some things about it more than I did at your age. But on the other side, I think that they also struggle to integrate that into like reality and be like, okay, just because some rapper is talking about like having sex with 8 women at a time, that's like not a normal thing, nor is it even a real thing, right? You know what I mean? But telling that to a 14-year-old boy who saw that, like that's a tough conversation to have.
Well, even that with pornography, right? So their access to pornography makes sex look like something that, you know, unless you're in pornography, is probably not real.
What, you don't always have sex with the babysitter? Like,
you don't always nearly choke a woman to death?
Exactly.
No. In fact, most women probably don't like that.
They'd frown on that.
They don't like that. They don't like that.
They'd frown on this. Yeah.
That is probably not the way to go.
Right.
But it's funny that you said
that is an issue though, right? Because there's a lot of, you know, ways in which this younger generation is learning, quote, what sex is,
right?
Which is really not what sex should be. Let's put it that way, right? It's not what most women want. It doesn't create connection. It creates disconnection. It makes it feel shameful, you know. So there's problems with them having so much access to it, and nobody's saying like, yeah, this isn't really what a penis looks like. This isn't really what, you know, a pussy looks like. This is all, you know, AI generated or whatever they do.
Oh, and then the AI side throws a whole different wrench into this equation, doesn't it? Yeah,
too.
I mean,
right, exactly.
There was a client of mine who actually had created a AI dating site, which boggled my mind, right? But they created it, and this was actually like a year and a half or so ago. So it was like pretty early into the Gen AI like thing, right? We were probably talking about mid 24 kind of area, and men were giving them like 20 grand a month to these AI avatars to do, and here's where it got weird. There's like a psychological component to AI that I think we're seeing all over the place. You see like AI therapy is like booming, right? It's like a massive thing, right? And you know, they said something about like, what was it like? What was like 6 out of 8 or something kids had talked to Chat GPT about a companionship level thing in that week. Like it was like some crazy fucking number. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. So I get that part. You're like, hey, I've got this friend that I could have a Zoom call with, essentially, as you can tell. But if today I feel like big tits, like I could also be like, can your tits be a little bit bigger? And they're just like, you know, like, cause it's all AI. It's all a math formula, right?
Right.
You know, like, and when you actually have no rate limiter on that, like, that's like, can't be great psychologically, I think, for somebody. You're like, oh, like, take your asshole and pull it open. And, you know, you're like, what? No, what's happening?
Yeah, it's a little too much there.
Yeah, right. You know, but it's a possibility now. You can do that right now, today on the internet.
I know. I know. And you were saying that you're having somebody on who's going to talk about sex robots, but when we talk about, you know, these actually pretty sure they started, I think, in Japan. Actually, that's where they were used a lot.
Not surprising.
Not surprising, right? And then
weird for them not having a lot of sex.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're not.
Or is this the reason?
Other,
yeah.
Right?
If you use a robot, is that still masturbation?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like those lines between reality and virtual reality are really, really, really blurring. But again, like, I think we'll probably maybe see more of that as well here, right? And so, like, what does that mean to human connection? What does it mean to intimacy, right?
Sure.
When everything becomes so, if you will, robotic. That as a intimacy coach, that's scary for me, right?
Sure.
You know, I look at my grandchildren and I'm like, oh, what's your sex life going to be?
Yeah,
like
what's your sex life going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, it's just to take a dark turn for a second. We actually had somebody on who was talking about using sex robots as a tool for things like pedophilia and such, where you're like, okay, here's a psychological disorder.
Yeah.
That we can now throw in like a decoy, if you will, like it's not touching any like human psychology, but like, I'm like, listen, I've got two edges on that in my brain, right? On one side, I'm like, oh, this is a really safe way, the safest way to do this, because both parties, the society and that individual, are both getting what they need out of the equation, right? Like, this person's not spreading their vial everywhere, and that person is not like building up, you know, because that ends up being like, you know, we hear it a lot about incels and all this other stuff, right? Like, I mean, it's a whole nother, but like, it's also fucked up that you were building like maybe child robots to have sex with grown men to scratch an itch. Like, it's like kind of like, shit, am I allowed to say that out loud? Like, you know, it's like,
the whole idea is really weird.
It's very weird,
really fucking like uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and yet, like, there are people who have fantasies around that, right?
Sure.
They may never carry them out, but they have fantasies around that. So in many ways, that's a healthy way to be able to explore that fantasy without actually causing harm.
Without causing harm, yeah. And I'm actually excited for that conversation, because I suspect that most of it's not around the darkest side of this equation. It's probably more around like, you know, hey, if you've got a thing around giving a blowjob, or, you know, cunningless. How do you say that word? Actually, I don't even know how to actually. Cunnilingus. There you go.
Cunnilingus is how I say it.
Yeah. Like, anyway, but like, that's a good way to practice. You don't have to be embarrassed. You're like, the robot's not going to care if you do it right. You know, like,
I'm curious about that myself.
Yeah, like, I'm just like,
it'll be like that game Operation, though. It's going to buzz and shock you. Might be a good learning tool.
Yeah. And how realistic is it? I don't know.
Yeah, who
like,
knows, man?
I'm
who
interested.
knows?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Well, you know what? I was at a trade show actually where there was the biggest sex doll. No, this wasn't like an AI sex robot, but the biggest sex doll company at the trade show was run by two women, like, that were in their 60s. And it was the funniest thing, because if you looked at these women on the street, you would think they were a preschool teacher. Like there was nothing about them that looked like they owned this massive sex doll empire. Like that, not a single fucking thing about it. And then when you talk to them, you've never seen two people who know more about their product than these two humans. Like, they knew everything. And most people, she told me, I said, listen, I got to ask you a question. Who the fuck buys these things? Like, you sell a lot of them, obviously, like thousands and thousands of these things a year. They sell a ton. And she smiles. She goes, you know what? People like there's a lot of lonely people out there. And like most of our clients aren't generally having sex with these things as often as they are buying them outfits and painting their nails and having tea with, you know, and I'm like, that's maybe even creepier than having sex with them. But at the same time, it's like, but at the same time, I'm like, how fascinating of a psychology experiment is this, that somebody's like going to go buy, and these things are expensive. You're talking about like $4 to $10 grand. Like these are not,
thousands of dollars out.
You know, like
it's so funny to me. Do you think we're going to start seeing a fetish where like a guy's going to be like, "Hey, honey, can you like be more robotic?
Maybe,
just stop moving your goddamn legs.
Yeah,
just lay there.
Here's the prompt I used on my
just
doll.
Here, I'm going to put this wig on you."
So Xanet, when
I've got these LEDs.
Yeah. So Xanet, when you're working with clients like couples, because when I looked at your website, I actually did notice something that was interesting. You said you've kind of like sunset working with men solo. Was there a reason like that drove that? I was just curious. I'm not shaming you or anything. I'm just curious.
Too fucking weird, right?
Too fucking weird. Yeah, the dudes are fucked up.
No. I worked with a lot of men when I started out, and I think I just got, just boundary wise, and though I can certainly hold my boundaries, it just was more uncomfortable for me. And I just realized like what was more comfortable for me was working with couples. Because I really enjoy, I feel a lot of healing happens in the couple situation, right? That's where a lot of sexual healing happens. That's where emotional healing happens. And that's just something that I've just enjoyed, the dynamic of couples and, the complications of their relationships and helping them work through it. I think it's maybe just been a little bit more interesting for me. And then like I don't do hands-on work. I used to do hands-on, sexological body work. But I really don't do that anymore either, because I just like the relational piece better, I guess I'd say. And then I do work with women as well. But yeah, I haven't worked with, like, I had one client I worked with for a long time, but I haven't worked with men in a while. And that was just a personal choice.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I love men, but it's just my decision.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So on you actually got into, like, I guess what I was going to ask about the couple side, which is, when you look at couples and looks like you've seen a lot of couples, like that sort of healing side on there. Can you talk to us a little bit about like what that journey kind of might look like for people? Because I'm curious how people come to you versus how they leave you, right? Like,
yeah, so that's great. It's a great question. So I have like a 90% success rate with my couples that I work with. So primarily what I do is I work with couples I have these retreats. They're basically 4-day retreats at my property in Asheville, North Carolina. And then I do group retreats as well. I actually have one coming up in February. But in my private retreats, I just do a very deep dive with the couples. And so we always start with helping to work through the communication and the emotional safety piece, right? Like making them feel better about each other, creating a situation where they can actually be vulnerable and communicate and talk to each other about sex, about love, about how they want to be loved. And my work is, and I think the reason it's so effective is because it's experiential and it's interactive, right? So you really need to understand, like, what does it feel like when you're looking in your partner's eyes and their tears start coming down their face? Like, what's happening inside of your body when you start to refeel that connection, when you've had a hard time, you've been fighting and et cetera, for a while, right? So I really feel like and I say this on my website, you can't talk your way into better sex and intimacy. You have to feel your way into it. And so couples have the experience of coming here, sometimes very disconnected. Sometimes they're just like roommates. I get a lot of roommates, right?
A lot of roommates with 8-year-old children.
A lot of roommates, right? And so they start to first feel the emotional connection of like, oh yeah, like I have some empathy for this person. I remember what it's like to, what's it like to be in their shoes, right? What's it like inside of them, right? So I always want to create empathy, because I think empathy is the piece that really holds relationships together, vulnerability and empathy. And then once that couple starts to feel more emotionally connected. And it depends, right? Some couples, we spend the whole 4 days working on the emotional part of the relationship because they aren't fighting a lot. So they need to learn how to repair conflict in a way that makes them both feel good, because most couples have no idea how to do that. They do a terrible job with it, and it just builds up constant resentment. Right. And then, it gets to a point where you just don't even want to talk to each other, or you shut down. Right.
Right.
So I really work on that. But in a couple where it's like, yeah, we need to learn how to do a little bit more repair, but we're generally in a good place, then, we start working into like, well, let's talk about touch. And let's talk about sex, and like, how do you like to be touched? And I'll show all sorts of different ways to touch that they get to explore. And then we'll look at like, what's your sexual style? Are you more kinky? Are you more sensual? Are you more energetic? And they get to explore that as well. So it's a very interactive space where they get to experience and explore what it feels like when their partner actually gets turned on, what it feels like when their sensual touch in their body starts to feel like shivers, right?
Right.
In a very safe space, going kind of slow, so that their body can really integrate the experience. And then, there's a lot of integration that happens outside of the sessions, where they actually sit and talk to each other about something that happened in session, or something they've never talked about before. And then, they get to stay in my very, very sexy, and I mean very sexy, Airbnb, where they get to practice, and they get to, try different things out. And then, not infrequently, they'll come back the next day and they'll be like, well, we tried this, Xanet, but it was a disaster. I'm like, okay, great. Well, let's talk about that. What happened? What didn't happen? Right. And so I get to intervene when when conflict happens, or I get to see what happens, and I get to stop it and help
before
them
it blooms.
Before it blooms, right? Like, oh, look at that. You're about to get in your pattern. What's happening right now?
Right.
How do we interrupt it? Right. And that's very powerful. That makes the difference between success and not feeling success, right? Because it's not me talking at them, and I don't spend a lot of time talking about their past history unless it's really
it's about
relevant.
now. Right. Yeah.
It's about now, and it's about the, like I talk about when you're in conflict, it's really like, what's the conversation under the conversation? What's really happening here? I know you're pissed off that we're not having sex, but what's really happening here is that you're resentful that I've been, just make something out, that I've been working a lot, and you are feeling ignored and underappreciated, right? And so when you start to repair that, everything starts to open up. So that's kind of what an experience would look like, and why most of my couples, a vast majority of my couples, really have good success. And I do, with many of them, continue to work with them for a little while after the retreat, just to make sure that they don't go back to their old patterns, which we all do, right?
Pattern interrupt is such a powerful training thing. And it's funny. One of these things that I never learned about till later on in my life. Right. And actually, it's been almost a whole show. We didn't mention Garnet, so I'll just go ahead and do it. But he's got this product called the Neurovisor, and it works on, photo biomodulation, basically, and brain entrainment and stuff like that. But it's a lot of that is about that pattern interrupt, right? Like, so it'll be like, it'll give you like this signal, and then all of a sudden it'll jolt you into another one, just to be like, nope, gotcha. And and that gotcha is what builds whatever you're trying to build, like that. It builds the resilience or whatever. And it's opened my eyes up to, like, a lot of the self-limiting things I have in my life. I wouldn't say I thought about this through a sexual lens per se, but a lot of things where I look at a self-limitation that I put on myself, a lot of that's just my patterning, and me being like, okay, what I need is a fucking lightning bolt right here to break that pattern. And we had the guys from Hopkins talking about this with psilocybin. They're like, when you have trauma, it's like you dig a trench and psilocybin comes and bulldozes the fucking trench. So it's not there anymore. And I'm like, what a great metaphor, because like, otherwise I'm just running in the same path, whatever that shape is, and so I love hearing that this is like not just in one thing or another. And it's like basically a lot of things. Like you got an issue.
Yeah. It's like how we work as humans more so than just maybe one aspect of our life.
Yeah, it's a very holistic perspective, right? Which is, I think important in the healing space for sure. But yeah, like with couples, right? Like, the first thing I teach them is like, I do this with my partner too. It's like, oh shit, here we are. We're in our pattern right now. Right. Just saying it, right, stops it. Right. That's the first step. Like just pointing it out. It's not us. It's there. There it is. We're in our pattern. Look at that.
Well, and in a way, you're abdicating blame to a non-human separate thing from both of you, right? You're like, oh, this is, and I think a lot of people too. I mean, I don't have this problem, but I think a lot of people are like, you hear tantric, right? Like that's a great example, right? A lot of people were taught sex is missionary on Tuesdays and that's sex, right? Like, and that's as far as it goes. Then you get into tantric and you're like, holy shit, you're like upside down and sideways. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And I think a lot of people like get very put off by that because it feels not like what they were taught. Like, do you kind of see a similar, less extreme, obvious version when you're working with couples?
I think that people just don't know what they don't know. And that's really, the experience that they get to have when they work with me is like, oh, we get to explore all of these different things, right? Like you've been doing it this way for 30 years. Like, what if you explored that, right? What does that feel like? Is that different for you? Are you enjoying that? Are you not enjoying it? So I feel like people just don't know what they don't know. And I want them to know that there's this whole smorgasbord. There's a lot of different opportunities to experience sexuality in a lot of different ways and sensuality in a lot of different ways. And so just opening up the door to all of these possibilities really will change people's perspectives. And you never know where it's going to go. Some people are like, oh, this energetic stuff is amazing. We want to, stay on this tantric path and really explore this. And other couples will be like, well, we thought kink was dirty, but like, this is really a turn on. Right. And, right.
Yeah.
So
and I suspect there's some people that are like, you know what? Missionary on Tuesdays is just fine. We're good.
Yeah. And for some people, missionary.
But it's got to be good for the whole, like everybody in that couple, everybody in that relationship,
Right.
Yeah.
And I think speaking from a women's perspective and having worked with a lot of women, I think that my experience is that a lot of men, missionary on Tuesday is just fine. Right. But women get bored. Women get bored very easily. We do. Right.
That's interesting.
So women are always the one who are like, I want something different. I can't keep on doing the same thing over and over again. We need to do a different position. We need to, right. So I think people need to understand that women have a much shorter attention span.
That's funny. Hold on. I'm taking notes, Xanet.
Switch it up.
They get bored more easily.
Yeah.
Just even having sex in a different room can make it interesting. Right. So.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I'm not at a spot where I don't have kids in my house anymore, but I think it is always one of those things where I'm always curious about, because like, it's hard to remember life before kids, like, and I was you were in New York City, I was in Hoboken, right? Like it was, so might as well.
I'm in Asheville now. I used to be in New York City.
No, I know, but you were at one point. What I'm saying is I spent my younger years in Hoboken. So like it was all New York. All that stuff. Right.
Yeah. New York.
And like, I know we must have had something to do because I was there for like 15 years, but I don't remember what the fuck we did, because like the only thing I remember about Saturday mornings now is like, what game are we going to? What breakfast do I have to make?
Where how like, fast do I got to get somebody somewhere? How fast do
I got to get somewhere? Somewhat like, so the very idea, and even if you're on vacation, like Saturday morning isn't like, let's roll over and watch cartoons. It's like, okay, we got to get to the next location, or we got to get to the airport, or we got to go to the thing, right? It's not, I don't just remember that. So like at some point in my life, I'm guessing I'll end up back there again. And I'm like, fuck, am I going to like that again? Yeah. Like, am I gonna,
right.
Is that going to be okay? Like, I feel like I got to like prep Like,
in that vein,
like,
I had the weirdest thing. I'm like, I would like to try that with my wife, but I don't know if we'll be too old by then.
Yeah.
I'm like, we gotta wait till the kids are out. That's gonna take some prep.
Yeah.
There's a tarp.
Yeah.
I don't know, Matt. I think you need to take more. You need to come on my couples retreat in February, Costa Rica, right? Like you need to do that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
Costa
Matt's
Rica,
got a
right?
house there.
I have a house
Come
in
on,
Costa
Matt.
Rica. I love Costa Rica.
We'll have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
But like I think it is challenging, right?
Sure.
To remember what it was like before kids. This is why so many empty nesters end up divorcing.
And when you said that, I was like, that totally makes sense because, like,
absolutely.
the marathon's over, and you're like,
stay together for the kids. I did the marathon. Is a real thing.
Right. We stayed together for the kids, right? I stayed together. We both stayed together for our kids. I didn't leave my marriage. We didn't divorce until both my kids were in college.
But you know what? You say that, and like I think a lot of people would agree with you who are in your position. But like it's like you stay together. I think somewhat for the kids, but like also until you have that realization that this isn't working. I think you're staying there just because that's what you're doing. Like
I think
like the familiar is easier than the unknown. Yeah,
and the kids are just sort of like a scapegoat for your
I think you're right.
aversions. Like you're like, okay.
No, I think there's probably, for me certainly that was true, right? Like I was petrified of leaving.
I don't have time to divorce right now. We've got a college prep.
Do you know how long this will take?
Yeah, I do.
Exactly.
You know how long?
Exactly.
You know how much this is going to cost us?
Well, you know what?
My point is, like, I think you have to make it a priority in the relationship.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Like, as your kids get older, you can go to a hotel, you can send them to their friends' houses, right? And you have to make it a priority in the relationship to keep things fresh, to keep on exploring, to maybe going to a workshop, taking an online class, whatever, right? You have to make it a priority. Otherwise, you get to, like, the kids are gone and you look at each other and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like who are we and what do we do now? Right.
Have we seen the latest CSI episode yet? Shall we put that on?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what you touch on though, and I think it's something that I love that's happening right now. One of the most exciting things in the world that's happening right now is people are understanding that learning doesn't end. There's no like start and stop to learning. And that's something that I think was not, at least in my world, was not presented to me as a child, right? Like there was there was linearity to learning. Like you go to kindergarten and then you graduate 8th grade, you go to middle, or you go to high school. You go to high school, you graduate high school, you go to college. You go to college, you graduate, and you're in a workforce. And that's it. Like, and it's very, very like, okay, I'm an electrician, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, whatever. And that's what I am forever.
Yeah.
Well, we could have 3 full marriages. You could have like 10 full careers in 100 years, right? Like, like you can, that 10,000 hours mark, you can hit that in a bunch of shit in that amount of time. Right. And like,
it's true.
And people, but what I love about what you do is nobody understands that also goes into like, it goes into everything. It goes into having sex. It also goes into having sex, right? Like, it's not just about lawyers, right? It's, you know, like, because, I mean, look, if you're telling me all these women are getting bored, like that's information every man should know. Like,
every man should know women get bored very easily.
They should be wise to it.
Yeah, we should all make a note. Let's get tattoos, gentlemen. Let's get a reminder, But like that's something that nobody would know. Listen, nobody would know unless somebody told them, right? Like, hey, have you considered this? No, of course I haven't considered that. Why the hell would I consider that?
Right. And your partners that might not bring it up because they're afraid of bruising your ego, right? Or it becoming, like that, like that's a tender issue. Like, oh, I'm getting kind of bored. Shit. Right. It's
or maybe they don't even know why they're bored. Like maybe they're just like, fuck, something's weird. Yeah. Right.
Right. Exactly. And they may not know that they just want something different. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
But a lot of the women come in and they'll be like, I need something different.
Yeah. The women are quite clear.
They've known for a while.
Women are pretty clear they need something different. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's, listen, I do know one person in my life where that happened, right? It was, the woman came after a long marriage and his narrative was it was out of left field. To your earlier point, it's never out of left field.
He was just completely oblivious.
I'm sure of that, right? And listen, I think we're all guilty of that. in our own relationships, like it might not be that severe, but when it hit him, it was a fucking landmine. Like it was like the world exploded. And I felt bad because I'm like, well, shit, that could happen to anybody. I mean, she just came out of nowhere. Then I started peeling it back in my head. I'm like, all right, well, you know, was it really out of nowhere? I don't know. Like, you know,
never out of nowhere.
It's never out of nowhere.
Never,
and they gave it a shot for a little while, but I think at the end of the day, like, I think without having somebody to sort of negotiate that path with them, I think it's very hard for people to get out of get that pattern interrupt that we were talking about and kind of get that righted.
Yeah, totally. And you know, who knows what else was going on in that relationship.
Tons,
where
probably a ton of stuff. Yeah.
And but I guess it's cool to know that there's people like you out there that are like, no, this is totally a fucking problem and you can come here and we can fix it.
And we can work on this.
This is an issue.
It's true. Yes. Very important to know that.
Yeah. So speaking of which, how do people work with you? And let's kind of explore
I think we're
that
wrapping this up right here.
Let's figure out how to, because we do love helping guests out, obviously, but like in this one especially, I think there's like so much like, no, you really need to talk to somebody like this if this is a problem for you, right? Like, just because it's like, you know, that's going to end up like the person I told you about. Like, I mean, I feel like that's where that ends up if you don't find some outlet for this.
All right. Well, I can tell you, like, my company is called Passionate Intimacy Retreats, and that's the website. But the best way to actually connect with me, I have the website that I would suggest people go to is howtoimprovemylovelife.com, how to improve mylovelife.com. And there you will find a intimacy equation quiz, which is kind of fun to do so that you start to learn what your like formula is for intimacy, which might be very different from your partner's. And that starts a discussion because very often people don't know how to start this discussion. And I'm like, well, just take the quiz, see what happens, right?
I love a quiz. I love a good quiz.
A good quiz.
Who doesn't love a good quiz?
Right. And from there, you'll find out, you'll be able to get information about my new book, which is the Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit, and how to connect with me, how to attend a retreat, private retreat, a group retreat in Costa Rica. Yeah, lots of ways to connect. Hopefully next year there'll be an online class as well that I'm working on.
Oh, I like that idea too. I was actually going to ask you earlier about that. Is this feels like the antithesis of Zoom because it is a kind of a more tactile thing,
it's very hands-on.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason I only pretty much only do retreats, because I realized, especially during the pandemic where, you know, I was just doing a ton of Zoom stuff, that it was very hard for me personally to be able to really see the results that I wanted when I just had people on the other side of a screen. Because it's so interactive and experiential, and I want to show you this and I want you to try that. And it's really hard. I can't demo, I can't model anything. So
can you move the camera so I can see something? Yeah, you're like,
I did have people do that. Set up your camera differently so I can have you do an exercise across the room. But it's so hard because I'm so hands-on in session.
And that takes the wind out of the sails, I would imagine, pretty quickly. You're like, okay, we can make this work, but it's not great. It's
not great. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Xanet, it's been fun talking to you. This is
well, thanks for having
pretty
me.
eye-opening.
Yeah, we didn't even get as embarrassing as I thought we could have, but I mean, hey,
I didn't blush once. I don't think.
I didn't blush once.
We did all right.
But thanks for stopping by, and we appreciate the time. But like, I think this is like fun that you're doing it, and I just keep that up. And by the way, I love Costa Rica again, if I haven't said that enough. So you picked a good spot there.
Awesome. All right, thank you all.
All right, guys, enjoy the weekend. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.